My name is Rashad.
I'm Brandon.
I'm Rihanna.
And
This is Learning Boldly.
This is Learning Boldly.
This is Learning Boldly.
Welcome to Learning Boldly, a series where current Texas Lutheran University students and alumni discuss their experiences as members of the Black community. The goal of this series is to inform, inspire, and empower members of the TLU community and beyond to continue a movement towards equality.
This is episode 1, the TLU Experience. Life as a Texas Lutheran University Bulldog is a unique venture. The chance to gain an education at a private university, in theory, translates to potential for a stronger sense of community, but that doesn't mean everyone shares the same experiences. And that chance to connect isn't always realized for marginalized members. For the Black community, life on campus, and the world as a whole is filled with unique challenges. Studies show that the Black community deals with inherent disadvantages in society, and with that comes pressure to perform at a higher level than their communal peers. The pressure to work twice as hard to be accepted.
Part 1, getting to TLU. I came from a working class Black family that taught us that the way to negotiate or navigate racism was to be twice as good. Twice as good mantra, right?
Twice as hard to get the same credit.
Because he pretty much said like that same, work twice as hard. And seeing that this is a very vulnerable conversation, realistic conversation. Yeah. Like for me, it's like, I know I have to work twice as hard to get exactly where I want to be. It's like, but we're both human. Like in this world, it's like, why are we in a place where now since my skin is just a little bit darker than yours, why do I have to sweat harder than you? When you really should be measuring, the skills that he has the credentials. And I know that's not realistic thinking, especially within this world, but I know for me, and I don't want to speak for you, like I get tired, truly exhausted. And you come to this place where it's like, damn, dude, like sometimes you just want to just sit down and not be that poster Black man that's just like macho. I'm always working hard. Sometimes, you just want to sit down and cool it, drink a beer like everybody else.
Before attending TLU, some students weren't aware of the school.
Well, to be honest, I hadn't even heard of Seguin before. I didn't know where it was on the map.
So I passed through Seguin so many times. I kept seeing the sign TLU. Didn't know what that was. Didn't even know Seguin even existed. I hit 123. We were at Southwest Texas. I was supposed to go there.
Depends. Do you go to a Black university, right? As a Black individual, do you go to a HBCU? Do you go to a private school like a TLU? That's, it's really up in the air to what you're comfortable with, or if you're trying to make a change. Are you trying to be that minority in that situation and maybe change that area?
For Robert Hatcher, attending TLU represented a milestone in his family.
But it's just when it came for my decision, I was like committed to going to a university that, like, I know it sounds crazy, but my grandparents wouldn't be allowed to go to. Like, that's how recent the segregation stuff is. So that was big for me personally.
Part 2, more than just an athlete.
There's an uncanny and unfortunate trend that many of the Bulldogs shared as to why they're recruited by the university. Here is J. Anthony Guillory, PhD.
Most Black men find out about TLU because we get recruited to play ball.
Yes, sir.
So in 2003, I filled out this little questionnaire. And from then, I just got bombarded with calls and, all kind of stuff from the then football coach who was a recruiter. And he told me I was going to be an impact player. And I got to the yard and, I ended up getting sidelined because my blood pressure ran high and they wanted to get that under control. And during that time, I met Benita Vinson. She told me that they were hiring in career services. And so I thought about getting a job. And so I went and talked to the then head coach, and he said something that kind of put it just like it was kind of jarring. He told me something to the effect of, he asked me how many classes I was taking. I said I was taking, 5 classes in a lab. And he was like, oh, that's good because, if, things get difficult, you always can drop a class and you can still be eligible. And I was like, nah, bro. Like, if things get difficult, I'm dropping football because I'm not on scholarship, right? I'm D3. This is D3 ball. So he let me know where his priorities were. And when I discovered that and accepted that, I was like, yeah, I think it's best that I start looking out for myself. I can't put my life in this dude's hands. And so I stepped away from the team freshman year, but it's not lost on me that me and other men that look like me found out about the school usually through the recruitment of the football program. And so what you saw was dudes come in, they were on the border, like, they were on a line in terms of academic eligibility. And after football season ended, they just declined. So where we might have had close to 200-300 people of African descent on campus at the start of the year, by January, it was cut in half. And I'm seeing this trend every year, and I'm like, bruh, like, so I became very outspoken about how we recruited. And I think I even wrote one time in the paper that people lie about how when they recruited us, and that they offered us very little in terms of like cultural, what I now know to be cultural competency and cultural support that would actually want to keep us on the yard.
It sounds like our freshman year is almost to the T.
I see.
Yeah. When I first got here for football, I think actually I'll go back. So once I started getting recruited, one of the coaches, he was driving down to my town. He was calling me almost, every night. And, like building this daily relationship.
Sure.
And, from a small town, my population, I don't know what it was then, but now my population of my town is 1,400, somewhere around there. So it's a really small town. It meant a lot for this man to drive 3 hours
Absolutely.
to come say hi,
Yeah, I bet that felt good.
Yeah, so whenever I came here, it was just like a boom, that's it.
Right.
I would try to talk to him. There was no conversation. And so then I kind of started to learn stuff. And then, I was going through, financial problems, trying to take care of myself so far away from home.
Yeah, sure.
And so I brought up to coach that I wanted to get a job on campus. And they told me, no, you don't, there's no working.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to support myself, but eventually I got to start caring for myself.
Right.
So they were like, it's a team, care about the team. And so I was like,
but the team ain't gonna be paying no bills, ain't gonna give you no gas. The team ain't buying you food when you hungry on the weekend and the dining hall is closed.
So I was like, I was like, all right.
Yeah.
I'll care about the team. And so then, and my breaking point was I had a lower back injury. And so then whenever that happened, I was just like, look, I've been going through all this. I'm gonna just stop right here.
Alicia Jones.
Can we do anything besides just being an athlete? Like, that was one of the things that my husband, he originally went to TLU to play football, but then it wasn't, it wasn't working out. He was like, I'm probably not going to make it to the pros from, this school, whatever. And so he was like, I'm more than just an athlete. Like I am, like I made it into college because of my grades, and the athletic part was just an addition. And so realizing that like there's so much more to us than just, our physical abilities.
Ryan Brown.
I had friends who were there for sports and, things didn't necessarily work out. And I mean, just talk about tell between 2 semesters, what my class looked like the first semester versus the second semester and years after that. And it was, there weren't things that were pulling them to TLU. And if they weren't, from what I saw, if they weren't involved, they weren't staying. And I mean, you take that one thing away, let's say sports away, and they weren't playing as much as they thought they were going to play, or they had stuff that weren't keeping them to TLU, they took off.
At the beginning of the year,
our African American communities, it's bigger. It starts off big, but then like by the end of the first semester, like the fall semester, half of them are gone. It's not as welcoming, or like it's not what they expected, so they leave.
And they would come and talk to me about football. They all played football, and you know, like, and the school was, you know, like the predominantly Black school. So they weren't getting a lot of recruits. They weren't getting, you know, and so they're like, if I just went to this school, if I went to the white school, then I would get more opportunities. I might get more scholarships. I would get more looks. And because if I don't play football, I'm not going to go to college. If I don't get a scholarship, I'm not going to go. And so I would be like, but you're great. You know, like, you are smart. Like, and you have the potential, and what's your backup plan? You know, like, nobody's talking to them about, you know, what happens if football don't work out? What happens if track, basketball, whatever doesn't work out? Like, what are you gonna do? And I had one of the boys that I used to work with, two of them actually. One of them went to TLU, but then financially he couldn't continue, and so he called and was like, Miss, I'm about to, you know, I can't go back to school. I want to be there. I don't want to be in the hood, you know, but I can't afford it. And so I was like, you should have called me, you know, like, there's resources, there's things, like, we could have figured something out. Like this, it, you know, like, it was huge for you to be there, you know, like, and then the other one was like, yeah, I'm not going back. They did one semester of school, and then it's like, well, football didn't work out. You know, I got injured, blah, 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 blah. And so now I'm just back at the Crib University. And I'm like, man, I don't want y'all to be at the Crib University. Like, y'all got to do something. And so I'm like, even though I don't work for that school anymore, like, I'm still trying to, you know, help. And, you know, the fact that they called me and was like, Miss, we don't, you know, like, what should we do? And I'm like, well, apply for some jobs, do something, like, don't get stuck. But so many of them, that's all they have to fall back on. And they don't have anybody that's encouraging them to say, like, you don't have to do sports. And even if you don't go to college, like, there's trade schools, there's, you know, all these different things that you can do that can still yield, like, a good life. And we just don't have that.
And that's like one of the things that's like almost the hardest part is just getting there. Once you get there, it's like, okay, find a way to succeed. And I think one of the things that I've seen is, like, there's guys that come in to play football, but it's like they've never been in, like, a classroom mentality before. It's like I've seen guys come in, no backpack, no pencil, no nothing. And so I work as a peer mentor. So if they come into the class, I'll pull them to the side, like, hey, you're showing up with no pencil, no paper. And, like, you got to talk to them differently. Like, I'm just going to, like you said, be genuine and be authentic. And then it's like, show up on time, show up with the pencil, you know, show up just ready to go. And then just seeing that progression throughout the semester, throughout the year, and then coming back, like, man, you were tough on me in the beginning, and I was like, I didn't want to listen to you because we're the same age. But it's like now, it's transferred to my other classes, and I see and I appreciate you. And that's like, for me, it's like, okay, if I help one person, two people, like, I know as a culture, it's just going to keep on transitioning.
Sean Washington.
We would sit on the panel for, like, when recruits would come in, type thing. And it was always funny, you'd have majority of Black guys would be in there when the recruits are coming in, because there's, you got majority of guys were Black guys coming in. So they're trying to have that relationship, right? So, like, you would have saw me there and be like, oh, okay, I can relate to this person. If I come here, this person's going to be here. Maybe they can be a mentor, type thing like that. I can, be under their wing. And it was just always funny when you would, they would have the parents in the room for a session where parents and the kids, students could ask questions. And then we would always make the parents leave so the students could actually ask the real questions that they want.
Here is Jennifer Sanders.
My thesis was specifically about, it was a case study on TLU. So I did interviews with Black men on campus to get their experience at a PWI, a predominantly white institution. So what I did was I interviewed those guys from freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors, guys who were leaving, guys who had stayed for, up to their junior, senior year. And I found that many of them came to TLU because of football, which there was nothing wrong with that. But when they came, they were just shown the athletic facilities, no academic no classrooms, no nothing like that. And so what type of narrative does that create for a Black boy of color? Not a good one. It's like, oh, I'm just good enough to play sports, but what about the educational component? And so that's what I was finding with a lot of the young men, the young Black men who went to TLU, and a lot of them left. Maybe they didn't get along with the coach, or they didn't get enough playing time. That's what I found that a lot of them faced, or they felt like the team wasn't good, they wanted to go someplace else. So we were just losing Black men, and that's kind of what led to me doing that thesis. I was wondering, why am I only graduating with 2 dudes who are Black? Like, there's a problem. That's a big problem. And so that's what led to my research. And I found out, even, the guys I graduated with, I think they stopped playing football maybe junior year or something like that to really focus on academics. And now they're doing amazing things. But, we wanted to see, okay, how do we really look at this problem and try to rectify this issue? I don't know if it's still happening. Y'all have to answer that question. And if it is, what do we do to change it?
It's just crazy that you saw the same problem that's still occurring today. And so I just wanted confirmation on that. For sure. And some of the answers that I got, it was like, well, paraphrasing, like my coaches, they were on me when it came to my grades because they needed me to perform on the field.
Wow.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Wow. So and like you said, most of the students, Black students here are football athletes. That's still a thing. It has not changed. Like, out of the demographics, Black community only makes up 9% of TLU. And I'm not sure if the number was lower when you were here. I would assume so.
Probably, yeah.
They're now slowly trying to get more progressive. Slowly.
Yeah.
Emphasis on that word.
I didn't even know about TLU, if I'm being completely honest, but I remember when I was being recruited there, and my high school career, I dealt with chronic migraines, but I missed so much school, and I'm thinking, I'm TLU, private school, you know what I'm saying? I'm not sure if I'm gonna get in there, and I'm having a conversation with the coach. I'm not gonna name, but I'm here. You want me to sign? Am I gonna get in? This is a white gentleman. Oh, don't worry about it. We'll get you in. That's then. And then now, he won't even look my way. I quit the football team. And so it's like when they need us, that's how I felt. That's how I felt in that moment. How do you feel about the majority of our community being so intertwined with athletics instead of being recruited for our academics? How you feel about that, man?
Here's Fernando Rover.
So I was laughing because Dr. Bollinger can also co-sign this. I did a actual summer research project on that very topic. I actually interviewed a couple of football players at the time, and I actually did that. Yeah, I did. So I laugh because you hit the nail on the head there. There's a famous book called The $40 Million Slave, where it talks about how universities recruit men of color to play their sports, to boost their financial stability. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's not something new, right? It's a perpetual thing that's been going on for decades. One of the things that was so funny when I was a freshman at TLU, we had a huge influx of African-American men, like a lot of African-American boys here. And then by the sophomore year, by second semester of freshman year, it was cut by a fraction. The next year, it was like another cut. And then literally, I would say by my senior year graduation, I think there's 4 of us that started from freshman year that got all the way through. Mm-hmm. It's a reality. And, one thing I try to, with my research project, what I try to argue is, it's a reality that we can't ignore. I mean, if you look at the dropout fail withdrawal rate, I'm pretty sure you can see a lot of patterns about how many, what certain gender and what certain ethnic group are the ones that drop out, withdraw, and fail. Mm-hmm. But I think what is missing in that conversation is that are we as a university, are we doing enough to make these individuals comfortable to where they're not having to choose between sports and academics? Like there's a huge dichotomy between academia and athletic. If you're treating each student differently, you're not holding them to the same standard, then what does that say then about your university? So it's a very interesting conversation to be in.
So you know how, you go in deployment and they ask you for your ethnicity and they be, this is just for our Equal Opportunity Act, you know what I mean? Almost as like a token, like, yes, we have these students here. Do you see that as, for sports, do you see that as the adaptation to that?
Yeah, you can definitely make that case that you can, because ultimately, if you're being recruited solely for sports and not on your academics, then that begs the question of, well, what happens if I stop winning? If I get hurt, right? If I get hurt and then I can't play anymore, do I still have a place here at TLU? While that might be your perception at first, but you're here now, so it's up to you to make this opportunity the best of your ability. So again, they may see you only as a number or a box. We'll prove them wrong. Exceed their expectations. You know what I mean? Let them, show them that yes, I can play sports, and yes, I can throw and catch a ball, but I'm also intelligent. I also work very hard, and I care about this university as much as you do. And ultimately, we're all Bulldogs at the end of the day, right? So that's the reason why conversations like this need to be had, because again, like you said, you quit the football team and you kind of felt like you were treated differently because you left. That's a valid experience. Like, you should understand that's okay that you felt that way, but it was not okay that he made you feel that way. Like this, because again, I knew this and other students knew this too, but no one was talking about it. No one was saying anything.
Part 3, looking for a tribe. TLU as a university clearly strives to create an inclusive education for all students. That said, Black students at TLU deal with the reality that this goal hasn't been achieved. For many of them, being a Bulldog means dealing with racism, systemic bias, and the feeling that they are a product of exploitation for the sake of branding.
And that's what I kind of felt when I was there. Same for some other alumni, where it's like, we need an African-American opinion. Let's call these 3 that we know. But we don't represent the entire TLU community. There's other people that you should hear about as well who have different stories, different perspectives in regards to that community.
Yeah, man, I definitely validate, because I know for sure that the President of Men of Honor, Nwankwa, has probably been on every website that you can think of. And it's almost like they want to use this image. Like, so he's a Black dude with dreads. And so now are we trying to force this narrative that, we're that inclusive, we're that culturally aware, we identify with the Black culture, this sect of BSU, to where it's not as celebrated as it should be. Correct. On the campus.
Correct.
And almost to the place where you have even the Black students don't want to show up. It's like, it should be like almost a thing of pride. Like,
yeah. And that's, you feel me? And that's the same thing we face. I don't know if it's the same thing now, but MASA, they have a center. They have a place you can go, archives, so on and so forth. I promise you, unless it's changed in the past few years or so, Black Student Union doesn't have something like that.
We do not have a center. We have a migrating place of meeting.
If you want to talk about change, there you go right there. Have a BSU center. You want to embrace the culture, you want to invest in the culture, do something like that. And watch, that engagement, in regards to Black Student Union attendance. Have a center like that and watch it increase.
TLU is a wonderful community, it's a wonderful school, but then you have situations like that reminds you that, the bitter reality of the world that we live in, that not even TLU is exempt from the unfortunate perpetual rhetoric that is our nation's history.
Because you're a black student, you know, you might be treated a little differently. You have to prove yourself, even though you're there and clearly they let you in the school. You know what I mean? Like you qualify. You're just as good as any other student there. But I mean, just little remarks that you would hear, and I don't even think that people kind of notice, like, "Ooh, that's great work." You know, they make the statements of "you're articulate," or you know, and just like, "Yeah, I know how to talk." Like we're good. Like this isn't a new language for me. Been speaking this for 18, 19 years.
Here is Danielle Searles, PhD, licensed psychologist.
Let me tell you how often I tried to travel back to Austin because it was just really hard, to be honest. All of the people that I grew up in my neighborhood, that I went to school with, everybody came from, much like you said, different walks of life. And I felt like I really got a chance to just learn more about, you know, people around me, how people are living. And when I got to TLU, with it being a PWI, it was a little bit of a culture shock, just a smidge for me. And also with it being such a small city that Seguin is, there's just not a lot of stuff going on. And even as an introverted person, you know, it was still tough.
Octavia Littles.
Whenever we're around certain cultures, we might talk differently, we might act differently, all those things. I felt like that for me was working overtime my entire time at TLU. It was like, and I had friends outside of Betas. My friends outside of Betas were Black. There was no other, like I didn't have friends that weren't Betas really I had a few. I'm not gonna say that. And so like I said, I had that high turning it on and off for everyone all the time because, you know, we always wear two faces, especially being at a college that's not, you know, most people don't look like us and don't have our culture. But I remember it being just almost exhausting.
You know, I can say in firm confidence that other African American students felt the exact same way I did, and we weren't always given the platform to say how we felt.
As the Bulldogs discussed their experiences, they were met with the sobering reality. TLU today isn't much different than it was in the past.
Part 4, let's go BSU.
Well, I will have a question. I have a question for y'all now. What has your experience been like just as students now at TLU, especially in this community, not community, but just during this time that we're in and the plight that we're going through? Black Lives Matter, then there's COVID. It's just so much.
Pissed off.
A hot mess.
Angry at the fact that it's just some things that are now highlighted within the community from which we knew, but it's not like we really pointed it out. Because they asked the football players to raise, well, they asked alumnus too to raise, I think, $5,000 for the players to push it out. So I asked them, you know, over Snapchat, some of my friends, you know, why are you raising $5,000 when your coaches and the team couldn't publicly announce that your lives matter?
Mm.
Yeah, I think more than anything is as the president of the Black Student Union, and with all this coming about, I thought they were, you know, they come my way more because we're kind of like the representation for the other Black students. And so I guess more than anything, whenever, you know, I wasn't getting anything, and then when I come myself and I'd say like, hey, just want to let you know that I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, still nothing. I was disappointed in that.
Yeah, a lot of people, and you find in this time, they want to stay away from the tough conversations. They don't want, you know, any controversy, any whatever, but sometimes we have to have those tough conversations to have change.
So since most of y'all are in BSU, all of us pretty much, do you feel like a general support from TLU for BSU? Like, do you feel like you are supported? Like, let's go BSU. I'm curious.
I mean, to be honest, I've never felt like. I mean, there were a few people, of course, that supported us, but as a school, I didn't really feel the support. Even when I, get to smacking my lips and talking, I didn't see no really support. So I think after a while, it was just like hey, in order to survive, you gotta find your way. So there's no point in complaining about it.
I feel like it's very surface level. It's not like the here and there. Like I feel like also for Black History Month, I feel like we also talked about that, how BSU is the main one that's talking about it, doing events, and it shouldn't be that way. It should be a school thing. And if you have Black students on campus, at the end of the day, you should be supporting them, because obviously that group of people is a group of people that are, since we're the smaller group of people on campus, that's the group that's struggling more. So I feel like TLU doesn't recognize that. And and also with Ebony Achievement Awards, we also have to get that allocated. I also feel like that's not right, and it should be supported by the school. So I feel like support's very surface level. Like, they say they support it, but do they show it? Stephanie Womack.
That's unfortunate, because those are the same issues that we faced back when I was there. I graduated in 2004, and those are the same issues. And I know how it is. I was president for a year and a half, and it's a struggle. And it does feel like it's forced when you're like, you should be supportive of this, but it feels like that because it is such a small population. But what I learned is detach from the outcome, focus on the process. So even if one person shows up to your event that didn't show up last week, or you've never seen them at anything before, that's a win. It's not about numbers, and it's not about those people who you're probably unfortunately never going to reach. It's about the people who do show up, and that's what's important. And that's, unfortunately, when you are a smaller organization and you're getting smaller turnout, you have to focus on those small wins. But yeah, we face those same problems.
We are a private university. State don't fund us. So you can make those decisions as to what you want to do with your community and your campus. And they have to be multiple decisions going on from here and out to make your students, who are not the majority, feel as if they matter.
I brought a member of the NAACP, actually two members, a member of the MLK Planning Committee. I just started bringing different people of color from the community. Yeah. And then the school started attaching themselves to it. So then I kind of
sponsored, or did they take it over?
No, they wanted. Well, they didn't even take it over. They just want to, stamp their name on it and stamp their. Stamp their names and say that TLU has provided this.
TLU, not Rashad has.
Not Rashad, has. Not BSU, but TLU has provided this.
Because it's bigger than you, Rashad.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. It sounds no. I'm being facetious. It sounds like they took your shit.
Yeah, and it took it. I had to fight with myself, because I was like, "This is mine. I want you to know that it's mine."
But it's and this is something that I think is really important. You got to hold folks accountable, okay? Because it's one thing if people who are paid by TLU come up with something like this. It's a very different thing if somebody who is paying TLU will come up with something like this. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Right? Best Buy will not continue to thrive as a company if the customers are having to anticipate their own needs and then try to get a product. You see what I'm saying? Right? Best Buy will be successful if the people who work for Best Buy can anticipate these needs and can then meet the customer before they even approach the door. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And higher ed is business, man. Don't get it twisted. Your tuition and fees, right? That's part of the business, right? The coach calling you, that's marketing, right? And the product is what we call, your education, right? So, I'm annoyed. Rashad should not be talking to me in ways that I can understand your experience. I need this thing to be much further along. right? But it tells me, right, that I was correct in my early assessment, my novice assessment. You said that they don't want to talk, you don't feel like they respect you as much because you don't have a college degree. I felt that same way, right? Well, now I got a bunch of college degrees, Rashad, and it still looks to me like the same thing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. What I do want to say is,
sure.
Also, is the reason I haven't said much is because one thing, this interview was me trying to confirm. Is it just the me thing? Is it just the 2020 thing? Or is this something that's been going on? So
what you think?
It's painful, but at the same time, I'm kind of in a weird way. Yeah. Kind of glad to see that someone else went through this,
No, you're not crazy, right? What you're describing for me, and I appreciate that you're saddened by it. I'm angered by it because I don't have much patience for people who claim to be experts who still get it wrong. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
You put that PhD on the back of your name, or you put EDD on the back of your name, I expect results. And I don't expect troubleshooting from a 21-year-old business marketing major, right? To be the only way that I have any inroads into the experiences of these Black students. And like I said, I'm annoyed that there's enough of what I saw as a student there that has continued, despite the fact that we've had, I don't know how many administrative changes since I've been gone. And I'm curious as to what the institution wants to do long term, because if it's not about serving all the students equitably, not equally, equitably, then I really question why they keep recruiting.
Part 5.
A
call to action.
I wanted to, because I had a question in my mind while you were talking. It just brewed up in my head.
Sure.
As Black alumni from TLU, or even any alumni that came from TLU that is aware of this situation, how do you feel like alumni can contribute?
By showing up. By showing up and coming back. So I remember looking around, wanting to see the Black alumni and seeing where they ended up as a student. I remember how important that was for me. So now that I'm 4 years later, now that I'm in that position, and I think the thing is why a lot of them don't come back is because of that. I think because they think their experience wasn't valid. Like they felt like, well, I was here and they didn't really care about me.
Dude, because it's crazy, because I hear so many of my African American counterparts are just like, I'm just here. I'm just getting my degree.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, to answer your question, how Black alumni, how we can make you guys feel safe and be heard is by showing up. I talk to all my, I'm friends with a lot of my fellow classmates who are African American, and every year I say, hey, I'm going to homecoming. Am I going to see any of y'all? And same answer. Oh, I ain't going this year. Oh, I'll go next year. Whatever. So yes, I would say show up. I say, come to homecoming. Come to, when we have open forums, when we have Crow Symposium, when we have, different things where, there's opportunities to, be seen and be heard and to advocate, use your chance. And if my voice, if my advocacy means one less African-American student decides to leave, or one more student feels more comfortable staying at TLU and feels like they actually have a place and that someone is here cheering for them, that's the whole reason why you're an alum. An alum is somebody who supports the institution.
Just having that experience of just seeing this man that looks like me and just being vulnerable with what he's been through, and he just instilled within me personally, that I do go to the school and I can be successful coming out of the school, but most importantly, I can show my face too, because I needed that, honestly.
Yeah.
A group needed that. I feel as if TLU was to sponsor more activities to where you have minority-based men or African-American descent, Mexican-American descent, come in and run those programs, how to tie a tie. If you don't know how to do your taxes, how to do your taxes. How to be financially literate. I feel like that would be progressive steps in the right direction to make those African Americans feel more included.
we did a leadership summit. It was like a one-day leadership summit. I forgot the name of it. I'll have to look that up too. But it was a dynamic experience just to have Black graduates of TLU come back and show us like, look, I am success. And these were like, I mean, just bomb people. Like, they're just amazing, successful people. And it's like, oh, you came out of TLU? So if you did that, I know I can do that. And those people remain my mentors today. So I think that the experience I had as a Black student was really good because I made it do that, you know? I mean, there's a lot of spaces that we weren't really a part of, but I connected with different communities, and just there were a lot of conversations just about how we have to move differently in the world. And I think because of that, I just became more of a well-rounded person.
You know, you and I meeting tonight, you know, that's now we can sit there and stay connected. And I can, you know, you almost have this mentorship thing going on, but you could also teach me, right? You're in a whole different environment right now that living a life that I'm, you know, kind of far removed from, but there might be new issues that I didn't even thought about, you know, from technology, even changing from when I've been in school and what you might be dealing with. So just, you know, keep your eyes open all around you, you know, just really with life, and seek out where you can go and maybe learn from somebody, even though you're kind of supposed to be teaching them.
I am Viddy Johnson, future psychologist. I am the past, present, and future. I am the generations to come. Listen and tune in. We got something good in store.
My name is Brandon, here to talk, inspire, learn boldly.
My name is Rashad Tobert. I'm a senior, future business owner, and the president of BSU.
I'm Rihanna Custodio. I am vice president of BSU. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and I'm a future veterinarian. How do y'all feel about episode 1?
It was low-key scary, only because like the similarity between me and Anthony Guillory's paths are so similar. So I think it made it scary because I know he was trying to work hard to make sure that he could be, I guess in like the school's eyes, the right person to hire. And I'm kind of moving that same way.
You know, for me, this whole experience has been confirmation to exactly how I've been feeling, not just at school, but in the world, period, especially during these times right now. It's kind of hard not to see a parallel because, you know, they were once us at the school, and, you know, they're doing life as well, you know. The interview process for me was more, I wanted to see if they were going to break out of the box of the professionalism. I wanted to see if they would almost give me confirmation or validation that my experience isn't new, you know. So the conversations for me were just more of, you know, are we going to break the ice from being gentle with our words and kind of, you know, be aggressive with our thoughts and our feelings?
I say for me, just I learned a lot about myself in talking to our guests that we had on. I learned a lot about the alumni from the school, and I also knew that my experience isn't isolated. And maybe in some senses I felt like that, but just after these conversations, I think that changed completely. You know, just looking at it from a different perspective instead of right now we're in it, in the midst of it, and then looking at it from somebody who's maybe 10, 15, you know, maybe as little as 5 years removed, and seeing the parallels and also some of the differences. But, you know, for me, it was motivation, just seeing the position that people have been in from going through the same steps that I'm going through right now currently is, you know, for me, it was gospel in a sense. And it was therapeutic just to have that opportunity to listen to their story, share mine, and just to exchange that. But one of the things that I thought coming in was like, man, you know, I'm outraged, I'm furious, and this is going to be my chance to let it out. But, you know, just being able to talk to different people, I learned to be more calculated towards things, take my time, and developing my thought process. Use it as fuel.
For me, episode 1, in the beginning, I was really nervous to do this because I've never done anything like this, but experiencing and actually like getting to speak to each individual, it like made me realize like the experiences that they are going through and like the same things are continuing, and knowing how to move past them and how to use it to push forward and as fuel, and knowing that they support us in what we're doing and making a change. And also like what Brandon said, seeing them like the position they are now after dealing with situations, seeing them successful kind of inspired me to know that our future is bright and our future is what we make it.
I think also since it always seems like there's a communication gap between like younger adults and older adults. So it was nice to be able to have like a sit down with them and talk to them where I didn't feel like I was inferior because of my age. You know, in a weird way, it was kind of nice to see that that we were on the same page. You know, it let me know that I wasn't just being a rebellious child who just wasn't acting out. You know, it's kind of nice to see that it's not just an age thing. That is something that we can come together to talk about and eventually change.
That was like a big thing that I saw too, and just talking to people is less of I'm older, you're younger, let me talk in a condescending tone, this is the only way to do it, but more so like let's all just come together and let's just have this conversation.
Thank you for listening to Learning Boldly. First, we would like to give our appreciation to everyone that was consulted for advice or agreed to be a guest on today's episode. Thank you for your time and willingness to engage.
Also, we would like to extend a sincere note of gratitude to Dr. Chris Bollinger for support and guidance throughout the making of this podcast.
Learning Boldly is produced by TLU alumni Nick Hayes and Adam Sweeney. Music by Nature Boy.
If you are interested in supporting BSU or would like to contact us, please feel free to email learningboldly@gmail.com. Next time on episode 2 of Learning Boldly.
The phrase Black Lives Matters makes people very uncomfortable. You have to ask yourself, why does it make you uncomfortable to hear Black Lives Matters? You know, and you want to counter that with All Lives Matters, right? But nowhere in Black Lives Matters have we ever said that no other life mattered. But we just want you to see us in our situation and help us to get to the point where we feel like our lives matter, you know. Mm-hmm. And one thing that, you know, we could be certain of is it's not the lives mattering part that's the issue, because you've never heard a debate between all lives matters and blue lives matters. If that's not the same thing, then what is your issue really? Is it because it's the word black, and it's because it's black people saying that we don't feel like our life is valued?